So, guys, welcome back to another episode of Quality Shot Boxing. My name is Ali, and in today's video, I'll be breaking down and giving my own opinion on the Andy Ruiz versus Luis Ortiz fight that happened 3 days ago. But before that, for anyone who's new or anyone who's old, a committed, loyal fan of the channel, please like and comment and subscribe below. So, I watched the whole fight, and overall, I believe that the fight it wasn't a special, it wasn't an all-time great or classic fight. I mean, you had two of the, in my opinion, biggest names in current world heavyweight boxing currently, and I felt that the fight wasn't as electric as I had wanted it, as I had hoped it would be. Yes, granted, there were three knockdowns in the fight, and in a way, I can understand why people may see that as being conflicting with what I'm saying, but you'll understand as I explain my take on things. So to start off, I mean, round one, naturally, with any fight, it's always the first round in which people like to test each other out. I mean, there were times where Ruiz looked like he was on it. There were times when Ortiz looked like he was on it. First round, essentially to suss out each other, see their game plan, see their reach, test them out. Although I did feel that Andy Ruiz was a lot sharper than Ortiz. Ortiz, in some of his fights that I have watched previously, he's been, I wouldn't say sluggish, but he's been slower than his opponents. I mean, it would be unfair to call him sluggish as a fighter on the whole, because he wouldn't reach the level, he wouldn't have the record that he has now if he really was sluggish. But I felt that in that first round, Andy Ruiz was a lot sharper, and he seemed to be more switched on. In regards to round two, there were two knockdowns in it. The first knockdown was a clean hit, was a good clean hit by Ruiz. Little exchange toward on the or approaching the ropes, and Andy Ruiz knocked down Luis Ortiz, got up, got the standing 8 count. Then the second knockdown was a few moments later. From what I saw, and it was in just such a quick glimpse, I felt that it wasn't as clean or it wasn't as sweet of a knockdown as the first one. But I guess Ortiz was still sort of feeling the after effects of the first knockdown. Having said that, throughout the rest of the fight, I don't think that Andy Ruiz took advantage or put more pressure on Ortiz. Did not put on more pressure on Ortiz that when he should have, apart from this particular round. But I mean, same thing. Second knockdown, it wasn't as great as the first, and that was the end of round two. As for round three, there wasn't much action to it compared to round two and the previous rounds. I mean, compared to round two especially. But I felt that Ruiz started to show a bit of dominance over Ortiz. There were some segments, there were some parts where Ruiz would connect with the hip punches more and more. And I felt that, considering the two knockdowns and with this, it started to essentially build Ruiz's, you could say, being ahead on the points, or being the dominant fighter, at the end of round three. Round four, I felt that Ortiz started to show a bit more fight back, started to show that he wasn't down and out yet. And he started to show some more aggression towards Ruiz. And if it was up to me, I mean, if I was one of the judges, I would have given that round to Ortiz, because I think he displayed more aggression, and he let Ortiz let Ruiz know that he wasn't just a simple pushover. Round five, I couldn't really tell who would have won it. I mean, Ruiz started to throw a few punches in combination that we were so accustomed to seeing him, especially in the Anthony Joshua fights, both the Anthony Joshua fights, whereby when he would connect, he wouldn't just throw pot shots or one or two punches. He would throw a combination of them, and he did that, which I found to be very good, and I liked seeing that, because it made me think that, okay, maybe Ruiz is starting to slowly come back into his element. Having said that, Ortiz did get Ruiz with a few good hits as well. I mean, it was at two ends of the spectrum. Ruiz is known for throwing his combinations, short, powerful, fast combinations. Ortiz for throwing, hard pot shots, like one or two shots. And I felt that Ruiz, from what I saw, Ruiz threw more combinations, whereas Ortiz threw more one or two shot combinations. In regards to round 6, I felt that there wasn't much to differentiate between the two fighters. I mean, there were spells when Ortiz looked like he was doing better than Ruiz, but then straight away there were spells where Ruiz looked like he was doing better than Ortiz, and it was very difficult to judge that particular round. As for round 7, I felt that it was in a way a repeat of round 1, in that they were both sussing each other out again. They weren't as into it as this is in the beginning of round 7. They weren't as into it as they were in the previous rounds. I mean, there were a few body shots by Ruiz that he tried to take, that he hit Ortiz with. I mean, I remember one particular shot where Ruiz threw a clean right hand on Ortiz's face, and he sent him back, and the whole crowd sort of jumped up and cheering. I felt that Ruiz, what he should have done is applied a bit more pressure towards Ortiz and really make him feel the heat, so to speak. And potentially he could have knocked him down once again for the second time in one round. So potentially 4 knockdowns. But I felt that at that point, both fighters started to get tired and more sluggish. And I felt that maybe Ruiz was perhaps conserving more of his energy and power for later on in the rounds when both fighters would be more tired. I mean, that's when remaining within round 7, that's when the third and final knockdown happened. This was a bit of a weird one because I felt that Ruiz, it looked like he hit him towards the back of the head. But I mean, for the most part, the glove hit the side of the head, which, okay, I can understand. But from how I saw it, again, in that split second sort of moment, I felt that he did hit the sort of slight towards the back of the head. But I mean, the ref didn't sort of have a go at Ruiz. He gave Ortiz the standard 8 count. I mean, round 8 was a much better. There was a very good exchange between Ortiz and Ruiz, but I felt that Ruiz got the better of Ortiz in that particular round. And I mean, there was a beautiful body shot by Ruiz on Ortiz, and I felt that once again he should have applied a bit more pressure. I understand both fighters were getting tired, but that's at the same time both fighters were getting tired. So what he should have done is just dug in deep and applied more pressure on Ortiz. And I think not only could he have taken advantage of that, but he also could have psychologically affected Ortiz and made him think, I'm fitter than you, I'm more able, I'm more on it than you, I'm more hungrier than you. Like, I am going to win this. Start at round 9. Right in the very beginning, there's a very good scrap between them. I mean, it looked like a few punches were missed, but they both went at it for a few seconds. Ortiz did slip, but I think the referee didn't it wasn't one of those slips where the ref misconstrued and said it was a hit. No, it was a clean sort of slip. But yeah, I mean, overall, it wasn't anything special in round 9. Round 10, Ortiz's round by a clear country mile. He dominated, in my opinion, from how I saw it. I felt that he dominated that center of the ring, and he was controlling Ruiz with his jab. Yes, I mean, even though up until this point, I would say the fight was most likely in Ruiz's favor. But so in a way, you could possibly make the argument on Ruiz's behalf that he took it easy. He didn't want to risk losing the round. But I felt that was wrong of him, and he should have put more pressure on Ortiz, because Ortiz, up until this point, and in fact, to be entirely honest, throughout the entirety of the fight, Ortiz looked a lot more sluggish, far slower, like he was forcing his shots compared to Ruiz. But having said that, Ortiz did very well by controlling Ruiz, keeping him at distance, popping the jab, maybe throwing in right hand, a few combinations, but just for the most part, using his jab, using his superior height, and dominating the center of the ring, making Ruiz tired and walk around the edge of the ring more so. Round 11, I would say for for the first half of that particular round, Ruiz turned up the heat, cranked up the heat on Ortiz, but he didn't take advantage of that. And in my opinion, there was at least one occasion where he could have scored a knockdown on Ortiz. But again, we're entering we are in the first round of the championship round, so they're both fighters would be extremely tired. I mean, they're not light heavyweights. They are heavy heavyweights. They are big boys, very big, weighing fighters. So I can understand he's tired, but he could have got another knockdown. I mean, so up until this point, I believe that Ruiz. So I get confused between the two names, Ortiz and Ruiz. But Ruiz could have scored at least 5 knockdowns in this fight, but he didn't take advantage of it. And yeah, I mean, the round ended that way. Round 12, the final round. The fight started off nicely. The round started off nicely. There were a few dogfight exchanges. I mean, essentially short bursts of quick exchanges, backing out, a few more exchanges. It died off for a short bit, but then it picked back up. But there were times where when one fighter made a mistake, they would touch gloves, or if the referee would separate them, they'll touch gloves. So there was a huge amount of respect between both fighters, and the round ended. Ultimately, the unanimous decision was given in favor of Andy Ruiz Jr. And I think that's a fair decision to make, because aside from the 3 knockdowns, I think overall the fight was equal. But the 3 knockdowns would definitely work in Ruiz's favor. Hence why I believe it's a fair decision to give it a unanimous decision in favor of Andy Ruiz, like I said. When I saw the scorecards, I think they were also fair. I scored some of the rounds the same way that some of the judges did, especially, for example, round 10, where Ortiz dominated that round. Clear definitely for Ortiz. Now, after this fight, sort of, I wouldn't say delicate, but he's in a precarious situation, in that he's reaching the end of, he's in his late 30s now. Yes, I think he's in his late 30s. Although someone do correct me, comment if I'm wrong here. I do feel that he needs to either make the decision if he's going to, because I think he's approaching retirement. He needs to make the decision whether he wants to chase that dream of becoming world champion, because he's had 2 world title fights with Wilder. I mean, even though he was done, the first fight, he got beat by Wilder. Even same thing for the second fight. But for the second fight, he was dominating Wilder. He was up on the scorecards. I think Ortiz is someone who can potentially cause damage, cause a nuisance to some of the heavyweights. And I think he needs to fight someone and start getting on the winning path back again, and start to fight serious fighters and beat them. Otherwise, he's going to drop down, and he's just going to become almost in the same bracket as Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora is a nuisance to the heavyweights, but he's not at that. He's not the A grade, at that top elite level, in my opinion. He's not in the top 3 sort of heavyweights in this particular era. So I think if he doesn't start getting back to his winning ways, he could chase the money fights, the big money fights. So fight only like the Usyks, the Joshuas, the Wilders again, make a trilogy of it, fight the Furies. Andy Ruiz, he's beaten another huge name. I mean, he's beaten, as we saw, Anthony Joshua, surprisingly, arguably one of the biggest shocks in boxing history. Even though he lost the rematch, I think he still made a name for himself. And the fact is that he beat Ortiz, and he knocked him down 3 times, because Ortiz is no joke at the end of the day. He is no joke at all. So for Ruiz to beat him says a lot about his potential. And I think that Ruiz is someone who needs to start considering fighting some of the elite level fighters. Otherwise, he could become another Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker was at one point a world champion. I believe he held the WBO world championship belt. That's when Anthony Joshua beat him. And since then, he's lost to White, which I think he shouldn't have. I think he should have beaten White. I mean, White, all credit to him, deserved that win. So if Ruiz needs to start taking his training more and more seriously, and credit to him, he has lost a lot of weight in the build up to this fight. Again, he needs to take that a step further. And just because he beat Ortiz does not mean that he can continue, or do what he did after the first Joshua fight. He needs to work on it. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is use that momentum that he has gained from beating Ortiz and start to chase the huge fights. Fight Wilder. I think there's an option for him to fight Wilder. I think there's an option for him to fight Joseph Parker after Joseph Parker's next fight with Joe Joyce. Potentially even Joe Joyce, another upcoming fighter. I mean, he's not at that level yet, but I think he will get there. It will be a very interesting fight to see. They're both, to sum up, both fighters are in very unique situations. Although I duly believe deep down inside that Ruiz's situation is slightly more favorable than Ortiz. Ortiz is approaching, like I said, late 40s. He needs to make the decision if he wants to fight for the heavyweight championship belt, become a world heavyweight champion, or does he just want to chase the money fights? Will he fall back into that caliber of like I said, the Chizoras, the potential, the Povetkins, the Pulevs? Is he going to become like a Joseph Parker? Who knows? That's a decision for him to make. And that's something, hopefully, that we will get to see out the last of his boxing days, because he's been an absolute credit to the boxing sport, especially the heavyweight division. Ruiz now needs to use this momentum to propel him further. I mean, he's already a huge name, in my opinion, in the heavyweight scene. So he needs to be able to use that momentum to push him further. He needs to chase the big fights, and he needs to win a few more of these big fights, or cause huge nuisances to all these fighters. I think a Ruiz versus Usyk fight will be very interesting, because Ruiz throws quick, powerful, short punches. And from what we saw with the Usyk versus Joshua fight, Usyk doesn't like the body shots. And I think that Ruiz could harm Usyk. So it's very interesting to see. But that's essentially my sense on it, my 2-piece on it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. And don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. If I've said anything that you disagree with, comment. If there's anything I've said that you do agree with, comment. It'll be good to see more and more people involved. And hopefully see you guys for the next video. Thank you so much, guys.